Hi, everyone. I'm Stephanie Dorwart, the CEO of Altius Healthcare Consulting Group. For those of you that are not familiar with Altius, Altius improves the financial and operational performance of hospitals and healthcare systems and clinics. And we do it primarily by educating, elevating, and empowering leaders and providing them with the tools, information, knowledge, systems, and tactics to make sure that they're providing the highest possible quality of care to the communities that they serve. And today, I want to talk to you about a new era. And it's not the one you hope will eventually show up at your hospital, show up at your clinic, show up at your healthcare system, but it's the one that's already here. In this mini session, it's going to be your wake up call, your spark, your permission, your invitation to stop reacting and start leading. Because what's happening in healthcare right now, it's not just about burnout. It's not just about fatigue. It's not just about tariff turbulence or even staffing shortages. It's really a full-blown staffing shortage and productivity crisis. But here's the good news. It's not permanent. And we all can turn this around if we work together. And I'm going to show you how. So let's really focus in and dive right in today, because this is going to be about baseball season, and I'm going to use some analogies with baseball. And to get started, I'm going to share a little story. Growing up, I absolutely loved baseball. Anyone else on the call love baseball? Anyone live? Drop it in the chat. But growing up in the 70s, there was no girls' team. So I had to play with the boys. And every time I stepped onto the field, I had to prove myself. I had to prove I belonged. I had to work harder. That's really where I learned resilience. I learned adaptability. I learned the power of stepping up to the plate, even when the odds weren't in my favor. And one of my fondest memories growing up was at a Pirates game in around 1979 when the Pirates won the World Series. And my favorite player was Willie Stargell. And I was at the game with my grandfather, and we stayed until the very, very end. And the smell of the popcorn, the hum of the crowd, all the way till the moment that I handed my baseball through a fence and Willie Stargell signed it and he handed it back to me. I remember that game perfectly. And what stood out to me really with Willie Stargell was the fact that wasn't just about the player that he was. It was about his leadership. It was about the fact that he had accountability, practiced hard, and We Are Family was a theme song of that team. And productivity really is about that all. It's about the fact that leadership wins games. It's about discipline. It's about strategy, and that's how you win the season. So in today's LinkedIn Live, I'm going to start by sharing you 4 fundamentals of productivity. Then we're going to walk through a framework for you to deploy in your department or your hospital or healthcare system where you can act, then accelerate, then achieve, and then we're going to drive it home with some real-world examples. But before we start going through the act, accelerate, achieve, let's talk about the 4 fundamentals that every productivity engagement or every productivity system needs to have and your hospital needs to have for your performance improvement. Number 1, you have to build strong fundamentals, which means you need to have the data. You have to have the benchmarks. And this starts with understanding how you can optimize your resource allocation and ultimately engage your team in better decisions. If you don't understand where you're currently performing, you can't understand where your opportunities are. So start with the fundamentals, begin with reporting, begin with benchmarks, begin with data. Once you know where your team, where your department, where your area is, it then starts with building the culture of accountability, which is number 2 in our framework. So we build strong fundamentals, and then number 2, we build out that culture of accountability. This is where you're setting clear productivity expectations or productivity performance metrics for everyone and performance improvement metrics across the department. You're holding those continuous performance improvement conversations, and everyone on your team, from the frontline registrar to the nurses to the accountants, everyone understands what's expected. And once we have set the foundation, we've established the culture, now we're going to optimize the performance and efficiency. This is number 3. It's great if we have reports. It's great that we're holding people accountable, but now how are we going to optimize our performance? This is really where the practice and the game plan takes action. We're working to eliminate unnecessary steps. We're focusing in on eliminating waste. We're designing workflows around patient flow. And once we have built the foundation, we've established the accountability, and we know what we need to improve, now we need to actually build collaboration and develop our future leaders. This is where we're equipping all levels of our team with the tools and providing that leadership coaching and peer benchmarking to make sure everyone's successful. We were working with a surgical department not too long ago that looked across the house and realized that they were only operating at about 50 to 55% utilization. By understanding what was happening within each individual OR, looking at their phase 1 and phase 2 recovery, they were able to shift some resources from being passively utilized, meaning they were sitting there waiting for the next case, to proactively being utilized, and they were able to actually improve by about $800,000 without an FTE reduction. Just better alignment of the needs of the team and the needs of the OR. So the biggest takeaway here is you don't fix productivity with spreadsheets and data. You fix productivity by taking action. And that's really what we're going to focus on today. You need your team to get out on the field. The first step in any productivity improvement project is to act. And this is the first A in our 3A framework. In order for you to actually change, you have to change. You have to act. And all too often, we see hospitals and healthcare systems that will sit on making decisions for weeks, for months, for quarters, for years. But every great hitter in baseball knows that hesitation's going to lead to strikeouts. If you're standing at the bat and you're just standing at the base waiting to swing, you're not going to actually be able to hit the ball if you never take the swing. So maybe you're waiting for a CFO. Maybe you're waiting for a new HR director. Maybe you're waiting for your census to stabilize. Maybe you're waiting for the new fiscal year. Maybe you're just waiting. But what I want to drive home today, that every minute that you wait, it's costing you. It's costing you resources that could have been allocated somewhere else. It's costing you time and attention of your staff that could have actually been doing performance or OR surgeries or supporting somewhere else. It's costing you something. And I want to share a hard truth. In some situations, as healthcare leaders, we know we have a productivity issue. We maybe even know that we have improvements that have to happen, and we know something needs to change. But the problem isn't necessarily a productivity issue. The hard truth is we have a decision-making issue. We have trouble actually acting and giving ourselves permission to change. So keep in mind that in order to improve productivity, you have to change. And in order to improve productivity, you have to make a decision. And that decision means you have to decide to do something differently. In many cases, your leaders, your managers, maybe even you in the C-suite or the senior leadership team, you're waiting for something to occur. And that waiting is going to cost you really important dollars every week, every month, every quarter. It's thousands, sometimes millions of wasted care hours, gaps in access. We're working hard, but because we haven't had a plan to optimize, we're not actually working better. So let me be clear. I'm not just talking about cutting staff. I'm actually not talking about reductions in force at all. I'm talking about you working to make sure that you have the right people in the right place at the right time, delivering the right care for the right clinical outcome, and you're doing it without burnout. You're doing it without bloat. You're doing it without blame. And the key piece I want to drive home with the ACT step is you have to swing. If you don't swing and you don't take that step, you're not going to prioritize productivity improvement. You're going to prolong inefficiencies. You're going to allow ER situations to build up and allow your patients to languish in the hallway instead of getting up to the patient care floor. You're going to keep approving overtime that probably should be fixed. You might approve travel positions that maybe that department doesn't need anymore. You're going to allow length of stay issues to persist, and every length of stay issue is a productivity issue. So the key message I want to drive home in the ACT phase is you have to swing. If you don't swing, you're not going to score. And if you don't swing, you're not going to improve. So you want to start to take a step. So what can you do about this today? Whether you're a frontline leader, whether you're a department manager, whether you're a therapist, whatever role you hold in the hospital, maybe the administrator's chief financial officer, is identify 3 places in your responsibility that you know are causing issues. Maybe it might be 3 high cost departments in your hospital. Maybe it might be 3 high cost areas or high cost departments within your system. Maybe it might be actual facilities within your healthcare system. Maybe it's 1 or 2 employees within your department. Identify 3 places where you know you have delays, where you have waste, where you have C players that could have the opportunity to improve, where you know you have issues, and empower yourself, empower your leaders, empower your team to take the swing. Swing for the fence. Change a huddle. Flex a shift. Coach a peer. Ask a better question. Change the process. Change the workflow. Eliminate a bottleneck. Think about all of the things that you've been thinking about changing, and then have a 10-minute conversation with your team, with your department, with your system, with your C-suite, and take the swing. Make the change. Because every minute that you waste thinking about the decision and tabling it down the road, kicking the ball down 3 months, kicking the ball down a quarter, is a decision that you could actually take today without delaying. So as I wrap up the act phase, what I want you to remember about this is that clarity without action is just a good idea. This is the time to move with intention. It's the time to align your resources because we do have so many staffing shortages. It's the time to commit to the work that you need to create the momentum moving into the next fiscal year. It's the time to create momentum going into the next quarter. It's the right time to create the momentum to make sure you hit your strategic priorities. This is where success and preparation are going to help you meet the opportunities. So we've laid the groundwork. We've identified in order to change, we need to act. But the next step is we need to accelerate. And in the organizations that make decisions to move forward with productivity or staffing effectiveness or efficiency, sometimes it's the acceleration phases where productivity goes to die. You've made the decision to have targets. You've made the decision to align it with your budget. You've brought in a partner and vendor, and the opportunity is there to act, but you need to act decisively and consistently and accelerate your improvement. Countless productivity engagements sometimes get stalled in this phase, but it's easy for you to change that. This is the period between having your target and actually starting to see improvements. And this is where you need to step on the gas. You need to accelerate. You need to run the bases. You need to do it quickly and efficiently. And you need to make those decisions to improve in small incremental changes so that you can round the bases. You can get onto first base and go to second and third and drive it home. Because after all, getting on base isn't going to be enough. Great teams run with purpose. Great teams know that run isn't going to win the game. Great teams understand that one success because you were able to improve overtime in one department isn't going to balance your budget. So as you're thinking about this, are your healthcare teams getting on base consistently, or are there opportunities? Ask yourself, are you wasting time on inefficient shift handoffs? Are you holding patients too long somewhere when they could be safely discharged? Are your patients in the emergency department in the hallways when they should be getting up to the rooms? Are you asking your teams to run reports, but no one's looking at those reports? Are you discussing productivity, but no one's committing to a change? Are you blaming the EHR, the system limitations, the lack of data, the lack of an improvement management system, instead of actually focusing on redesigning your processes, redesigning the workflows? Are you blaming the benchmarks instead of looking at your staffing grid and identifying if you have the right nurse to patient ratios that are appropriate for your care and that your units are actually staffing to those ratios? Are you accepting missed targets and missed opportunities as just the way it is? That's just the way we do things here. Are you holding daily huddles with your team, with your employees to ask where you can improve, making sure they've hit those marks? Any of those places where I asked those questions, if your answer was, yeah, that occurs sometimes, you have the opportunity to accelerate. Data doesn't drive results. Productivity reports alone do not drive results. A budget does not drive results. Your leaders do. Every one of you on this call today, you have the opportunity on this LinkedIn Live to drive the results at your organization. If you're catching the replay, you also have the opportunity to drive results. Leaders drive results, not productivity reports. Productivity reports are your tool. It's the gap between knowing where opportunity exists and understanding that you have a gap to the meaning or a gap to better performing and a gap to best practice, and identifying and looking at that with curiosity to say, what's in the gap? What could we do different? This is where your waste and your opportunity lives. You accelerate by taking committed action. You accelerate by making a decision. Set a target, coach a leader, move forward. These are the practice drills. They're going to help you to accelerate. And when you're accelerating, celebrate every single win, regardless of how small. Were you able to eliminate overtime redundancies and improve overtime? Celebrate the win. Did you look at your agency use and be able to eliminate 3 travelers or travelers on the night shift or travelers across an entire department? Celebrate the win. Were you able to improve your length of stay management in the emergency department or reduce your length of stay in the emergency department, or maybe improve your leave without being seen rate? Celebrate the win. Were you able to look at your patient registration team and identify an improvement opportunity to make sure that you have more accuracy the first time the patient registers? Were you able to work with them and capture clean data the first time and downstream fix errors so you don't have to rework it? In radiology, did you prioritize your stat reads so that they actually can hit first and help with your emergency department throughput? In laboratory, are your phlebotomists actually being optimized and coming in first thing in the morning with their assignment so that they can start right out of the gate? In physical therapy, are your therapists productive 75 to 80% of the time? Are there opportunities for them to actually work towards that 75 to 80% of the time? In finance, are you managing staffing based on volume levels and flexing and changing things? Or do you have opportunities within your accounting team to do things a little bit differently? Every single department within your healthcare system, within your clinic, within your hospital, have opportunities to accelerate. Every single employee have opportunities to accelerate. Push on the gas. Identify where you have those small opportunities. If something's taking you 20 minutes right now, how can you work to make it 20, make it 19? If you have a patient care gap because you have access issues, how can you open up the templates so that you can actually move patients in quicker? I was working with a client not too long ago, and we were actually talking about access in their family practices. And they were looking at the fact that right now they couldn't get patients in for the next 6 to 7 months, and they were losing patients and panels to the competition. And we started talking about things and looking at the provider productivity. Instead of approaching it with negativity and accusations and punishment, we just talked about the fact that right now they were averaging with some of their providers 12 or 13 patients per day. And if they were able to actually change the template slightly, put in place strategies to help those providers get up to 16 to 20 patients per day, all of a sudden their access problem disappeared. So that's another reason to accelerate, because you want to actually provide care for patients. So we act, make a decision in a committed action, moving in direction of your goal, and then you press on the gas, you accelerate, you round the base, you run efficiently, you run fastly. We don't just sit and admire the dashboard of our productivity reports. We don't just look at the targets and the gaps to productivity to the better, best, median. We press on the gas. We identify what we can do to change. So pick one department. Look at their performance over the last pay period, the last few pay periods. Pick one employee. Look at their performance and their accountability. Reallocate a shift, change something, look at a process. Make your first run by accelerating, picking a movement that you can make in the direction of a goal, direction of committed action. And if you do that with every employee, every department, every organization within your healthcare system, every provider, your entire world will change. And now you're not stuck in the productivity rut. everyone's excited because you're moving towards the goal, you're accelerating, you're doing it quickly. So you have to act, make the decision, and then we're going to accelerate. Because once we decide to act and accelerate the improvement, we will then automatically hit step 3, which is achieve. When we act, we step on the gas and round the bases and we accelerate. Now, achievement's going to come naturally. And in any performance improvement engagement, achievement is what will keep the team excited. You need the achievement to fuel the team. One win is not going to win the championship. One win is not going to fuel the season. A walk-off home run, it's thrilling, but it's not going to make the crowd go wild all the time. They'll celebrate for a moment, but it doesn't win the game. So we have to make sure that we remember championships are not won on one swing. We celebrate the win, we celebrate the victory, we celebrate the success, but the achievement comes in doing it time and time again. We all know right now that healthcare is really uneasy, and many of us are dealing with multiple balls in the air. And achievement right now isn't going to come from one project. We're not going to balance our budget with one hit. We can't balance our budget just by one success, one-time initiative. We can't do it on a short-term fix. It's going to come from a culture of continuous performance improvement and a culture where we're always looking at what we can do differently. And that starts with each of you. When you're tracking your performance, you understand the gaps and you look at those gaps with curiosity. Now we can achieve because we celebrate where the opportunities are and we start to work towards it. Our mindset cannot be, we did it once. We did one project. We improved in one department. Our mindset must be, we did it once, let's do it again. Let's do it better every single time. Our mindset must be, what can we change? How can we provide better care? How can we improve our length of stay? Because when our mindset is the opposite, we're going to fail. When the mindset is, we hit our target, we're done, and not, we hit our target, how can we sustain it? You're going to always find yourself going this cycle over and over again. So we need to focus on the fact we can solve the problem, we can achieve, but what did we learn from it? And what can we do from that learning experience to apply it somewhere else? Because in healthcare, the mindset right now that's going to really move things forward and give you the momentum to move into the next quarter, move into the next fiscal year, move into your next 3-year strategic plan is really focusing on how can we change, where can we innovate, how can we do things differently? And it all starts with acting, making a decision, accelerating, keeping the foot on the gas, rounding the bases, and then achieving. And there's really a practical, repeatable approach that we use at Altius that's going to help you do this. And it's a 4-step framework, and we do it with a single, double, triple, and home run. And we have a white paper that really solidifies this as well. So if you're interested, drop it in the comments, message me, we'll send you the white paper. But this is really a practical, repeatable approach with insight into execution that's going to help your managers identify opportunities and hit the home run every time. It starts with a single, which is adaptively manage. In every situation, with every employee, with every provider, with every patient, you need to flex to that situation. In your role, you need to flex to the actual problem at hand. Flex your leadership style, know your team, flex to the situation. And this happens by communicating the why behind your expectations, adjusting your approach to that particular problem in that particular moment. You need to adaptively manage. That's your single. Get on base. Once you're on base and you understand how to adaptively manage, now we're going to hit the double. And this goes back to accountability. Once we've adaptively managed the situation, we're now going to instill accountability. So we're not just setting the goals, we're holding everyone responsible for them. We're inspecting what we expect. We're reviewing the performance. This means we have priorities. We have aligned outcomes. So we're getting onto base and we're celebrating the progress. We're accelerating. We're coaching through those goals. And once we're on second base, we're now going to move to third. And this is the triple. And this is where we really focus on building collaboration with our team, creating synergy, because nothing's accomplished alone. This is where we tear down silos. We make sure that radiology is working with the units, laboratories working with the units. We have an effective transport team. We're tearing down the silos, bringing our teams together. We're having an interdisciplinary rounding. We're sharing our priorities. We're aligning our outcomes. When your departments collaborate, when your departments align, when your departments work together, you will realize that inefficiencies, setbacks, challenges, productivity issues, they have nowhere to hide because your collaboration and your synergy and the innovations going to break them down one by one. And before you know it, you're going to turn around and you're hitting the home run and rounding the base and scoring. And this is because you're leading for change. You're leading the change initiatives at your hospital. This means that there's no more perfect project that you're just waiting to happen. You're not sitting back waiting for the perfect opportunity to start. You're just starting. You're no longer going to have pilot projects that die quietly. You're going to have projects that get momentum, accelerate, have wins, achieve success, and finish. And you're going to make sure that every single initiative has momentum, has energy, has owners. You're committing to the long-term improvement because healthcare today needs consistent change. You need to have forward momentum. You need to understand where you're going. You need to have those plays that build momentum. So that's what the hitting cycle looks like. You're going to adaptively manage. You're going to instill accountability. You promote the synergy and you lead the change. So how do we as healthcare leaders have more opportunities for improvement, and how do we build the culture of excellence that we're all really striving to achieve? Well, I have a message for you. Your culture of excellence begins with productivity. Staffing effectiveness, efficiency, productivity, workforce optimization, that's your foundation for a culture of excellence. And that foundation for culture of excellence is built through that and leadership development. So here's what I recommend if you're serious about improving, you're serious about sustaining productivity, you're really looking at staffing effectiveness in your organization or department right now. Number one, you want to have consistent conversations and coaching opportunities with your team. And this means having those consistent productivity talks with your managers, with your leaders, but don't use it as punishment. Productivity is not meant to be weaponized. Productivity is meant to be a tool for alignment. It's a tool for reflection. It's a tool to build momentum. So build a system dashboard, meet with your team, understand where you have opportunities, and identify 5 drivers that you can change. Identify 3 areas that you can accelerate, because what gets measured is going to get managed, and what's visible is going to get attention. So identify where you want to go and have conversations around it. And then redefine what success looks like for you. Don't just chase the metrics. Define what behaviors you want. Communicate what change you want to see happen. Are your teams showing up with timelines, with decisions, with data, with flexibility, with engagement? Or are you all just going through the motions? So make sure that you're surrounding yourself with the right team. And remember that it's not just going to be about the data, it's about what you do with the data. So are your managers leading like coaches? Are your managers stepping up to the plate and hitting the ball? Are your managers actually rounding the bases and celebrating the wins? Because if you want to build a championship team in your organization, your system in healthcare, you need to build leaders who can win this season and the next. And that all starts with understanding your dashboard, understanding your productivity, looking at the gaps, identifying what's in the gap, and then swinging for the fences. The best teams, they're not going to show up unprepared. They study the game. They have a game plan. They have the right lineup of hitters. They practice. They lead. The best hospitals and healthcare systems, they do the same thing. So remember your cost of waiting, your cost of indecision. It means bleeding cash. It means bloated payrolls. It means losing your A team members because there's not clarity around purpose. It means missing your margin targets. It means not being able to reinvest in the equipment that you need to keep you at the top of your game in the hospital system. It means that you haven't actually identified opportunities to act on and made those changes. So today's your opportunity. Act, accelerate, achieve. Let's play ball. And if any of this resonated with you, drop me a message, reach out, send me an email, DM me on LinkedIn, DM me on YouTube, reach out to Altius. Whatever it is, we offer 30-minute free strategy sessions, and we will help you identify one opportunity that you can take to act. We'll help you identify one highlight, one area that you can accelerate in your hospital or healthcare organization or department. And then ultimately, we will recommend one tactic that we can do to help you achieve. This isn't a pitch. This is your playbook. So reach out, let's swing for the fences, and let's all hit a home run.